Hi, my name is Robert Hayes. I'd like to thank Pastor Chad Wilt for letting me sit behind his sacred desk this week. In school this week, they asked us to talk about one of several different topics, and the one I chose was marriage and divorce. So I'd like to talk about marriage and divorce. Marriage is supposed to be a sacred institution, but I think clearly times have changed over the years, and that people's views on holy matrimony aren't really holy anymore, if they ever were to them. So most people don't see their marriage as holy, and God has been left out of the equation. Even though a couple stands at the altar and they say an oath before God, their family, and their friends, swearing that they'll stay together until death do us part, through sickness and in health, for better or for worse, for richer and poor, when things start to get hard a couple months into the marriage, or even a year or two into the marriage, after the honeymoon is over, then things get hard, and people just seem to forget all about those vows. And in today's society, it's become culturally acceptable to just get up and walk away. But when I look at the Bible and what the Bible says about marriage, none of that is scriptural. I know that in my own personal experience, that marriage takes work. We have to work at it. We have to put a lot of effort into it to make it work. And I also know that marriage isn't what I thought it was the day I got married. It's not what I thought it was going to be. It's a lot more difficult than that, but it's also one of the greatest blessings in my life. So I love you, Mrs. Hayes. There have been there may be periods in marriage that couples don't always agree with each other, and if they're not careful about how they respond instead of react, their emotions can cause great divisions. Emotions were not made for us to be ruled by, yet so many of us are oftentimes ruled by our feelings. Letting your emotions rule you causes you to react poorly, and often harshly. Lashing out in the heat of the moment. I once read somewhere that love is having the patience to respond rather than react. It is in the heat of the moment when two people are having the patience. It is in the heat of the moment when two people are mad and arguing that divisions are created and divorces are decided. Hard-heartedness and cold hearts set in, and love, along with the holy vows that were made, is just cast to the wayside. So a lot of people get married because they think that they're in love, but when things get tough, the love that they felt they had for one another is forgotten about. All of a sudden, their own feelings and emotions become more important than anything, and that's all that they can think about. So what I've learned through my own marriage is that love is an action. It's not a decision. Love is not an emotion, for emotions soon fade away. Real love never fades, and it never grows cold. Instead, real love lasts forever. Now we can take a look at what love really looks like in 1 Corinthians. And in 1 Corinthians, let's say chapter 13, the whole chapter is about love. But we can start in verse 4, where it says that love suffers long and is kind. And love doesn't envy, and it's not puffed up, it's not prideful, it doesn't behave itself unseemly, it doesn't seek its own, it's not provoked, and it doesn't take into account of evil, it doesn't hold a record of wrongs. So we can take those scriptures and we can weigh our version of love and whether or not it's real, whether or not it's true. And if our version of love doesn't line up with those scriptures, then it's not real. For instance, if I say I love my wife, but I have no patience with her whatsoever, then obviously my version of love is a little bit warped. So we can use the scriptures to hold us accountable and keep us on track. The Bible says a lot about marriage. It says from the beginning of creation, in Mark chapter 10, verse 6, it says from the beginning of creation, male and female, He made them. For this cause a man shall leave his father and mother, and he shall cleave to his wife. And the two shall become one flesh, so that they are two no more, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let nobody tear apart. So I'm going to stop right there and point out a couple things. The first thing is that the two become one flesh. So whatever I do to myself, I'm essentially doing to my wife. Whatever I do to my wife, I'm essentially doing to myself, because we're no longer two, but one. In the eyes of God, we are now one. And I also think that when Jesus says, whatever God has joined together, let no man tear apart, I think that what Jesus says he means, because Jesus is not a liar. God is not a liar. He's not a man that he should lie. So when he says, let no man separate, I think he also means don't even let the husband separate them from the wife. If we look at the book of Hosea and how the Lord commanded Hosea to marry a prostitute, she was unfaithful to him, even though he had children with this woman. And she was unfaithful to him. He still didn't divorce her. This is how God views our unfaithfulness to his love for us. We hoard around with different idols, and we went chasing after other gods. Money, children, sex, drugs, you name it. The list can go on and on. Yet God never divorces us. He never gives up on us. He never leaves us, and he never forsakes us. He stays committed. That's what love is. That's what marriage is. Marriage is commitment. When we commit our love for one another, we need to keep this commitment. We should follow his example and walk as he walked. 1 John 2:6 says that he that says he abides in him ought also to walk even as he walked. Thanks, guys. Have a great week.